How's it going, guys? We are back here on the Liberty Hour, streaming through the Spreaker Studio app and my 16 Jackson AJ1 Twitter account. I'm on here with Aleeyah Jade. She was just talking to me. We were just talking about mental health and stuff like that, and uh, what people can do in her videos that she creates as well on through her YouTube channel, which is Aleeyah Jade. If anybody wants to check it out. Um, and so I wanted to go ahead and ask you more on that. So why do you think that it is that what are some of the biggest things that people can do to improve their mental health? Because obviously, in today's society, there are major issues when it comes to things like anxiety and people who are go through depression and bipolar and stuff like that. What not necessarily people who can come over that, but what can people do to cope with those issues and have a better mental health going forward?
It honestly depends on the person because everyone, like goes through different experiences, which because people can go through similar experiences and they can pick out something that like affected them the most and they keep it with them. Like it just depends on the person, but like honestly, if you're religious, I feel like praying is very good, and if you're not religious, meditation's very good. Like just have like a
Yeah.
moment of like in the present moment, like just a peaceful moment.
That's what I try to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I do that as well. And then there's also, music, obviously. I feel like music really, which is another reason why I make music. We'll get to that later. Um, there's that. Honestly, I know this is really cliche, but sleep is very important. And I used to think it wasn't important because I'd only sleep for like 5 hours, if that. But sleep is very important because if you only sleep a little bit, yeah, sure you can like be running, yeah, up and running, but you won't be able to be at your full potential
And
because
speaking about sleep, your most recent video you did actually talks about sleep and it's how to be a morning person. And I wanted to actually ask you because I don't know what to consider myself, and I don't think a lot of college students do, because I think we're both forced to be morning persons, but we're also night owls at the same time because we also want to have fun with friends and stuff like that. And because everybody
yeah,
has busy lifestyles, all of that runs into each other. Because if you're in college, you get two of three things. You don't get all three. You get friends, sleep, and homework/studying.
I
You
feel like
don't get
all
all
of you guys
three. You're
do
getting two of the three,
that.
period. So my question to you is, how can someone who is going through, like, who is a very busy person, who works 10-hour days, or a person who is a college student but still wants to make time for friends, how can they still manage to do that while staying healthy when it comes to a positive sleep schedule?
Ooh, well, I'm not a nap person, but for some people I know, they say naps really help them like re-energize themselves. So that makes sense. But also, I don't know, I feel like in the morning especially, it's not always true, but most of the time the morning, like whatever happens in the morning usually is how the rest of your day is gonna go for the most part. Like if you wake up, and you work out, because working out's good for you as well.
Yeah,
So like if you work out,
which I
then
need
you
to do more.
feel, like you feel like motivated and energized, and then the rest of your day you're gonna have a productive day because you're already up and running. But I feel like if you wake up late, you're like, oh crap, and then you gotta go get gas, and it's an extra 20 minutes to get to school late. You forgot something at home. It's like you're instantly like everything in that day is just gonna irritate you because you woke up that way. Well, you didn't wake up that way, but things led up to that. So like honestly, I'm not in college, so I'm not 100% sure because I know
Right.
like it just whatever works for you really because some people go to classes at night, some people are there all day, some people are there in the morning. So you kind of have to figure out your schedule. I say the best thing to do for anything, especially when it comes to planning, is to write it out because if you think about it, it's harder to like imagine every single thing you need, but if you write it down, it's all in front of you and you can kind of like plan accordingly. I feel like just depending on like if you go in the mornings, you can either wake up super early and do stuff before school, or you can go to school, do that, come home and then be like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm gonna have leisure time, and then this time, I'll do some homework. Procrastination is not the answer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know.
and
I will.
I've learned that too. As a journalist, that's something you definitely learn is you can't procrastinate on anything. And I've gotten a swift kick in the butt on that a couple times this semester for sure. I could definitely
Yeah.
that's happened. But one thing. Oh, for God's sake, Ricky. Ricky, I'll get to that in a second. Not in this conversation we're having right now. Your boyfriend.
Oh no.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I don't even remember what I was going to say at this point. Oh yeah, now I do. It's something that's so obvious too. I think is what you what you're eating throughout the day too, having balanced
Like,
meals and stuff like that. So you don't even have to be a morning person for this. If you wake up at 11 a.m. in the day, having at least something for breakfast is something that's absolutely necessary. I think I always have even just a bowl of cereal, which is what I usually have for breakfast, and some like piece of fruit or some yogurt and stuff like that. But you can't just eat occasionally throughout the day, like I think some college students do. Wake
well, that
up.
ruined you inside.
Yeah, wake up, do something, have a bowl of ramen, go do work, come back, have like, a sandwich or something like that. Like, that's not healthy, but it's also not healthy to go out and eat all the time, which is, I think, is something that I've ran into a lot, which is why I'm trying to do it a lot less. As I said on the podcast last week with Ricky, I'm not religious, but I am doing my own Lent, which is not eating fast food for 40 days until Easter. And so, and that's going to help me out because I'm trying to lose weight myself right now. And that along with working out is important, and it doesn't take a ton of time to do it, but it's something that is important and
It's
necessary
one of
for
those
mental health as
things.
well.
Yeah, it's one of those things, not just exercise, everything really. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, I don't want to do, I don't feel like it. But then once you're like in the middle of doing it, you're like, this is amazing. Like, why didn't I do this before?
Yeah, and the reason I
It's a
bring it up
repeating cycle.
too, is because even though that gets away somewhat from mental health, physical health for many people it can be definitely a big impact on their mental health.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a must.
Yeah. And so, we're talking about sleep here and, what people can do, to get better sleep. And I wanted to ask you this question because a lot, obviously this can't change for college because people actually are able to create their own schedules, at least in some kind of fashion. In terms of high school, most high schools have their days that start, at 8 in the morning, some places 7:40, 8, 8 or whatever, stuff like that. So they start really early and, kids, will have their, long lunch break. And then, you have the end of the day at 3 o'clock. And I wanted to ask you this because there's a lot of talk that's been going on of should schools start later, so that kids can get more sleep, to so that they actually have the mental capacity for their early classes. What do you think there's anything that could be done to maybe have schools start at a later time? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it goes both ways because not speaking for all kids, but I know a big portion of kids don't go to bed on time anyways.
Yeah.
Like they get out at like 3 and they'll still be up till 3 in the morning and then they'll complain it's too early. I know some kids do go to bed on time, but I know a lot of them because I used to be one of those kids that would just stay up and, I thought staying up at night was the coolest thing. So I'd be up all night and then I wouldn't eat breakfast. So I'd be doing it to myself really. But I don't know. It's because I mean, I feel like either way, either they need to be responsible at night or, you could do it late, but then it would run later into the day and that might like collide with like family things and, homework time. So I don't know. I don't know if they'd actually use it or not.
Yeah, that. I think that's a good point too, because people do need to obviously take personal responsibility, which is something that, that's definitely something I talk about and preach on this program a lot when I've had other guests, and when we're talking about other issues. But yeah, I have to agree with you on that. That it does come down to you have to be able to manage your time well, because time management is something that when it comes down to it, it really that's what it boils down to is how well a person manages their time and what they're doing throughout the day. Because there are some things you're going to have to give up. You're not going to be able to do things with friends every day because you have something else going on, and so that's something that's very important as well. So I think that's a good point. Going on to the next issue I wanted to talk to you about. So you graduated Lincoln in 2017, and
Yeah.
then from my understanding, you ended up spending some time in North Carolina. So what I wanted to ask you is, what ended up, why was it that you ended up moving? And then tell me about your time in a different part of the country and how that all went. Like, what did you get to
All right.
experience and see? Just tell me about that experience.
All right. Well, I moved in September after graduation because I was getting bullied. And I moved. My mom lives there, so I decided to just jump on a plane like a week later and went all the way to North Carolina by myself. It was scary, but it was fun. And it's really nice there. It snows a lot. It gets very cold, but it also in the summer it gets to like 120 degrees. So it gets
Yeah, that sucks.
and it's not dry heat, it's humid, so it's like 10 times worse.
That's bad.
But I mean, yeah, but it was something that wasn't the most fun, but it was something I really needed because I didn't start changing into the person I am until I moved there. So like it was one of those things that's like hard to do, but it pays off in the end. But it's really nice. The food's amazing and the people are really nice. But I lived on an army base, so there was a lot of other people, like random people from all over the world, really. So it was interesting to see that side of society, you know?
Nice, cool. Yeah, that's very interesting. And then, so how long were you there for? And then, what ended up bringing you back to California?
I was there until February, and in February we actually drove and moved to Utah. And we were there. And then in April, I believe, I came back because I was having family issues there and I couldn't stay there anymore. So I had to move back here. And like, usually I would have been more mad, but I was like, well, my boyfriend's here, so I'll move here anyway. So then I, so then I moved back and then like rekindled my friendship with my family here. And then yeah, basically.
Nice,
So.
nice. Well, that would actually perfectly transition to my next issue, but I did have a quick question for you that I wanted to ask, and that is, you mentioned that you were getting bullied, which is why you left. And I wanted to ask you because bullying is another big issue that goes along with
Oh yeah.
mental health and stuff like that today. What do you think that schools can better do to help prevent bullying? Do you believe there is anything that schools can do to help prevent bullying?
I'm not sure. I mean, you could always do something, I think, but I feel like also nowadays kids are really like when they say like no bowling, they're like, oh geez, or they kind of just shrug it off.
Yeah.
Because I feel like now that I feel like society as a whole now isn't the nicest anyway. So I feel like to be considered bullying has like increased. So like, oh, if they say like if they cuss at someone, it's not bullying. It's like they're just being kids. Like and now it's like they're just being kids instead of they're actually hurting someone's feelings. Like I feel like they don't label anything as bullying until it gets to like a certain point where they're like, okay, well, that's bullying now. But I feel like being rude to anyone is like a form of bullying. Maybe not like a big form of bullying, but it still has an effect on people. You can say like one rude thing a day, like every day, and that like you could really hurt someone, and that's considered bullying. But they don't consider it until like someone's getting beat up or threatened. Like I feel like
Right.
they don't catch it early on.
So I
Kind
think
of
that's
just
a
like,
really good point because I think everybody is going to have a different definition of what that means. And when we get to the broader scope of things, that's what leads into the issue of, today's some things like political correctness is because some people will label one thing as bullying or harsh to one group and one person may not. So, you mentioned just anything that may be like harmful or hateful. How do you think, what do you think can be done for there to be better understanding between people so that people aren't offended as much in society and that people actually are more at peace with each other? What do you think can be done to bridge that gap with people who may feel that others are offensive and then others who may just not understand that?
I don't think we can really do anything. I feel like that has to be done themselves because once again, like everyone has a different perception of things, and I feel like some people are too stubborn and kind of, like, oh, I'm right or I'm wrong and you have to deal with it kind of thing. Like people don't understand or like meet each other halfway anymore. Like everyone's just like, well, it's all about me, so like you just need to adjust. And then when everybody's like that, and you put them all together, there's going to be some type of outbreak because no one's going to put up with anybody else.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and end this part 2 here as I'm getting close to my 15 minutes. When we come back from our break, I'm gonna ask Aleeyah a couple questions related to her YouTube channel and her following. I'm gonna ask her obviously a little bit about her music and how she met my good
Yeah.
friend Ricky as well. All of that to come here on the Liberty Hour when we come back. We'll be right back, everybody.